You're listening to The Art of Imperfect Adulting. I'm your host, Amy Stone. Here, I share stories from real people navigating the adventure that I call adulting. Are you ready? Me too. Let's do this. Hello, friends. In this episode, I'm going to introduce you to my friend, Jennifer Corbeau. Let me tell you this. If you are a person who likes to travel, there's a really good chance that you're going to love the story today. Because a few years ago, Jennifer made a decision to do something that most of us will only ever dream of. So if you're ready, let's do it. Jennifer Corbeau, welcome to the Art of Imperfect Adulting.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just very thrilled to be here.
I'm thrilled you're here too. Are you ready for a fun chat?
I am, definitely. Let's
Yay. All
go.
right. So I start every interview asking people where in the world they are. So tell us where you're joining me from.
Well, right now I am in Boston, but I actually am from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I did a solo cross-country drive up to Boston to do some house sitting.
Oh, very nice. All right. So I love this already. That is a hint on what sort of what we're going to talk about in a minute. But before we get into the topic of the day, I do want to take a chance to learn a little bit more about your personal background. Tell us a little bit about your life outside of work, people who are important to you, pets, hobbies, whatever feels good, as little or as much as you want to share.
Sure, sure. Well, I am a single lady of a certain age, as they say. No. Um, we love that, right? No, I am single. I have two grown kids. My son lives on this side of the world in Rhode Island. My daughter lives in Portland, Oregon, and I'm sitting there in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Uh, wondering what I'm doing so far away from my children. And I mostly work. I have a little bit of family in Albuquerque, but ideally I love to travel around, and hence the house sitting. I found this great site where I could just house sit around, and I am in the middle of one of those right now. Um,
Very nice. I interviewed somebody who's coming up quickly on the podcast who did some house sitting, and she told me about one of the websites that helps people find and
yeah.
get matched up. So that's a very cool thing. There are some hints in what you've already shared about what we're going to talk about today, which is that you once upon a time took an entire year and filled it up with a solo traveling adventure. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yes, I did. I can't wait. It was the best decision that I could make.
That is very cool. So I'm very excited to hear about this. I think this taps into a dream that many, many people have of checking out and traveling. So was it something that was a plan from the outset to take a year and travel, or was it something that started small and grew into a year?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, it certainly was not my first solo travel experience. I mean, I definitely started much smaller, and but I have always, since I've been little, loved to travel, and I've always enjoyed. Uh, I like to say that it started when I was very young, when my parents stuck me on a plane when I was probably 10 or 11 or 12, well, probably several times during those years from New Mexico to Texas to see my grandparents, and I thought, oh, this is the way to do it because I don't have to, compromise with my siblings. I don't, yeah, I get all the attention from my grandparents and other relatives, and I thought this is fun. So I've enjoyed traveling since I've been little, and then when I went to England for the first time in 2010 and just fell in love with it when I got there. I mean, I like to say I fell in love with England, but really I fell in love with myself while I was in England. There was something about that trip, so I've tried to come back as much as I can. And so I've done several solo travels and to England. And yeah, I had an idea of I wanted to do an extended period of time because I do have a dream of living there one day.
Okay.
And I thought, well, maybe I'll do an extended trip there just to see how it is to more it's still a holiday, but more live there. And and so I thought, okay, well, I can go for 6 months uh on my passport on a,
Right. So that's because everywhere you go internationally
yes,
is going to have slightly different rules, changing
right.
all the time. But yes, yes. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And then it grew to, well, I can spend 3 months in Ireland on my passport. So it grew to 9 months. And then it actually happened. I was taking a shower where often our good ideas, come, and I thought, well, why just those places? Why not, make it a full year and check out Western Europe, France and Italy, and it was just an idea. And I knew that I was I left, and this might be going a little bit further. I left a relationship. I left the home. I put everything I had in storage, and because I just knew this was the right thing to do, to make it a whole year and just go for it.
All right, so let's get into the details because it's a little bit of an eat, pray, love kind of story. Then is
Yeah.
the way it shook out. So it was an intentional plan that was at least somewhat scripted out before you hopped on
Yes.
the plane to do it, and so you set it up. How long ago was this?
So it was right near kind of it when travel was opening up again after the,
After
COVID lock.
lockdown?
Yeah, so I went in from October of 21 to October of 22.
Okay. All right. So I was gonna guess that it was, well, if I was guessing when travel opened back up at 21. I traveled, I think, the summer of 21 to that. I'm not sure that that's right. We did one cross country trip when everything was still closed down, and then the summer after that, because I had kids in school, we did a trip that had been delayed that required like
Right.
travel. So I forget what year
Right.
that was. I probably have the years wrong, but so it could have been 20 and 21 or 21 and 22. All right, so it was a plan. You did a lot of things. How long did it take to plan it? This is probably impacted by lockdown a little bit, how long it took to plan. How long did it take you to plan this?
Yes, because it was already a little bit planned. The plan was already in the works a little bit because I also lead retreats to
Yep.
England, and I had one for 2020, I believe, and then I thought, okay, no, I'm going to try for 2021, and that again, it still didn't work. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just do 2022, and so for a week in that year, I led a retreat in England. So I'd already had planned to spend that extended amount of time just in England. I hadn't quite, it took, a couple years. So been thinking about it for, a couple years, thinking about it. But then
Wow.
really I remember it was in February of 2021 that I decided, no, I'm going to do the full year. And
Gonna
so
do the full year. All right.
yes,
So, and when
I had
you,
almost, I had several months, before I went.
that is amazing. So let's go through some of the things that you had to do before you left. Because you mentioned it. So you were in a relationship and you ended that relationship, or was that not related to the planning of this trip?
Oh, that was absolutely, absolutely related.
Okay.
I knew that, it was, I knew that it was coming, that it was time, even though it was an absolutely wonderful man, but we just had these different lives. And, uh, yeah, so that was actually the first thing to transpire. We were living together at the time, and um,
I'm
it
packing
was.
my bags. You're not invited.
Well, yeah, it was. And then we still lived together for the rest of the time, knowing that we were going to be parting ways, come October.
Was that
So,
awkward a little bit?
yes, it was. And it was kind of sad, but I mean, it was very sad, but we both were, when I first brought it up February. We both were kind of in this, well, it's so long,
Yeah.
that we're not even gonna really acknowledge it, to each other until, which it really, we almost didn't acknowledge it until the very end.
All right. So that's interesting. It sort of feels like the seasonal relationships you have when you're a kid, and it's like, well, yeah, I'm going to be gone for the summer, so do we stay together or do we break up? I'm going to college. Do we stay together? Do we do the long distance thing or do we break up? So that sounds like a grown up version of that a little bit in my head. If
It,
I was writing the script for this, that's the way I would write it.
I mean, it absolutely was because we never got back together in a full relationship, but we still kind of saw each other in this sort of awkward way after I got back. But it was a break then, and
A
that
cool break, a clean break is what I mean. The
was
okay, so then so you were living you had a place to live, and so you moved out of that and put everything in storage while you were gone.
right.
Did it ever
Yeah.
flash through your mind that you might not come back? That you were doing a full relocation?
Every time I travel, it flashes through my mind that I might not come back. So,
Okay, so that's interesting because it sounds like there's a pull from England. So
absolutely.
you had a very confirmed plan to spend an extended amount of time in London and then a pretty long time in England, Ireland, and then some touring through the other European countries. Was that the agenda?
That was kind of what it was. I had planned to do England for 3 months,
Okay.
go to France and Italy for 3 months, and then, maybe, oh, actually, I'm going to backtrack there. My daughter and I had planned a train tour during over the holidays. So I was going to plan to meet up with her in London in December, and we were going to take a train all the way through France and Switzerland and into Italy. And so I made my way over to Italy, went to Rome, and she ended up not being able to do it because there was still so much COVID stuff. I mean, there was lots there with testing. And at that point, Switzerland actually closed its borders to Americans. And so that part of the tour was going to be canceled or, you know.
Ah, so many
So
unpleasant memories about how hard it was to
yeah,
travel at that time.
it was,
So many.
it was, yeah, but I got used to it. I got used to all the testing I had to do. So anyway, I ended up being in one of the things that I was not expecting in Italy for uh yeah, almost 2 months when I was just expecting to be there for maybe a couple weeks
Okay.
or something.
So let's take a second and talk about the fact that you were doing this because this is a good place to put this in here. Your daughter was going to come and meet you, but one of the things that makes this unique, this story unique, at least partially, is that you intentionally do this solo. You are by yourself.
Absolutely.
And when people think about being traveling like this, a lot of people do it in pairs and in groups and as part of groups, but you do it by yourself. So you set out with your suitcase or two for a year,
Right.
and your intention is to really just mosey on by yourself, and you really enjoy that.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I want to say it's not an either or. It's not that I will only solo travel.
That's what I was
You know,
going to ask you. Is like, do you have this
what?
like as like rules? Like no one is
No.
allowed.
No, I mean, but when I have intended to solo travel, then yeah, nobody's allowed because
Okay.
I am wanting that time to really connect with myself. I'm wanting that time also just to do whatever the heck I want to do just for me, not
Sure.
worrying about, because what I really notice is when I'm with somebody else, especially in a place that I've been and that I love, I am so focused on them and
Sure.
are they enjoying it, and then where do we want to eat, when do we want to get up, what do we want to eat, where do we want to go, all of those things. Is that person having a good time? Is that
Right.
person enjoying it as much as I am? Where And I just realized such a stark difference. I One of my first kind of solo travel memories, or transformational turning points is when I was in Los Angeles just by myself and I was at the beach. Being in New Mexico, we don't see a lot of water. And
Sure.
so being at the being at the beach, the sun was setting and I just was in tears because it was so beautiful. I mean, I just felt it. I was so happy to be there. And I remember thinking while I was there of, I don't think I would let myself feel this if I were with somebody else
Oh,
because
interesting.
it would be a lot about, well, how do they feel? What are they thinking? Are they going to think I'm weird that I'm, crying because I'm sitting and watching the waves? All of those things that for me come up. And just how appreciative I was to myself that I was giving myself that time to just be there and be by myself.
Yep.
And so that was huge that I really can be who I want to be. I can get to know who I am and what I want and when I'm by myself and yeah, huge gifts. I mean, I've come away from solo travel much more connected to
Yep.
myself, much more confident in, what I'm able to do.
Oh, I
And
bet.
yeah, well, much
I
more
bet.
trusting of myself, trusting of my body. And that has always been huge of, okay, this is something that I can do. I mean, I do honestly consider solo travel to be the quickest tool of transformation that that anyone can do. I mean, there are all kinds of things that we can do that have these growth and, transformational possibilities, but I have found that solo travel has the quickest. And part of that is because it's not always fun. It's not always comfortable. It's not about, oh, I'm
Right.
finally going to be by myself and it's going to be wonderful this whole time. No, I mean, that's a
So
huge,
let's talk about some of those things. First, though,
yeah.
I want to ask about in the planning phase, because in my head, it seems to me that planning a year-long excursion and adventure is a little different than like a 7 to 10 day trip domestically. So, what, if any, if you remember, what were some of your concerns, your apprehensions, your anxieties when you were before you left, like when you were planning? What were some of the things that you were had bouncing around your head?
Sure. So, yeah, it is different. And I just realized I am allowed to set up as much or as little as that would make me feel comfortable.
Okay.
I'm definitely not one of those people that can just go anywhere and decide, oh, I'll find a place to stay or whatever. I like to have this kind of skeleton of where I'm going, how I'm getting there, and where I'm staying. That part set up ahead of time. I certainly did not have everything set up a year in advance. It was maybe, 2 weeks in advance at a point. But some of the things that I was really that caused a lot of anxiety was like my phone plan. Uh, how am I gonna figure out, what kind of phone plan? I certainly can't do, the international plans on my cell phone that are, oh, just pay $10 a day for, whatever.
Right.
I had to figure out all of these things. It was what am I going to pack? How am I
Packing,
going
I can't
to?
imagine.
And I have to say that I went with one kind of medium-sized suitcase and a backpack for the whole year.
But that is what I took when I lived abroad as a student, but I
Mhm.
also shipped a couple
Okay.
boxes that like arrived, like
Right.
I shipped I traveled in the summer, like as it was a
Yeah.
school year, and then we shipped a box, maybe two, I don't remember, of winter stuff.
Right.
But other than that, I just had one backpack and one bag. And like 10 months later, I did not bring very much of that stuff back. I left it.
Right.
I was like, I
Oh, totally.
never want to see these clothes again.
That is absolutely, yes, absolutely. Uh yeah, and so it was what am I going to bring and what am I because now I know and what I, when I encourage people to solo travel is only bring what you can carry because you're
Yeah.
not going to have help all the time even though I ended up having this kind of help throughout. I had lots of very beautiful synchronistic experiences, but yeah, that was the big. I remember the phone thing being huge, the insurance. What am I going to do about my
Okay.
insurance?
Yeah.
Um, and those kind of details. It
I
wasn't
bet you
about
that's because for a year,
that.
right? When you're
Yeah,
planning it in your head, it's all going to be sunshine and rainbows. But in reality, at some point in the year, you're going to get a cold and you're going to need to talk to somebody about it. And those are the kind of things that
right.
that's good forward planning. Like, how am I going to do this? And the phone plan and the medical stuff, those are things that are, that are hard to really finalize
Mhm.
from far away.
Right.
From far,
Yeah.
there's an element of it's like there's a piece of this that I'm gonna have to figure out when I get there. People are like go in this store and get this thing, and you're like, oh, okay, I can't do that till I get there. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that's it. That can be a little bit hard. Now, one thing is that I found somebody to talk to. I found someone who did kind of this travel coaching that
Oh,
told
okay.
me these are the things that you want to look at because yeah, all I'm doing is I'm going to go and stay in England for 6 months and this is where I'm going to stay, and not even really thinking about, okay, I got to figure out these little details. So, yes, so I got help, which was,
Brilliant.
yes, which was uh, one of the best things that I could do for myself in that planning period. And she was wonderful. And, you know, so it was nice to talk to someone who had done it and
Yeah,
then who knew, okay, these are the things you might not have thought about. This is how you get an international driver's license. This is how, not
sure.
that I
Didn't think
drove,
of that.
all of those kind of things that I wouldn't even she told me these are, some brands of clothing you want to make sure, you get things that are packable. And, she talked about the capsule wardrobe, that kind of thing about, just taking a few things and making sure everything goes together. So all of those little things yeah, I didn't really
That is
consider.
very smart, actually. The capsule. I didn't think about it because when I like my extended trip there, I was like a college student, so I had my existing wardrobe. There were limitations. There were limitations. All right, so you did share with me in the intake form that even though, like, as I'm thinking about it, it just sounds like such a dream, to be able to plan this and this wonderful thing. You did openly share that this was not all easy, and you describe it as a profound experience of act of self-love. So share with us some of the things that, if you want to, you don't have to share all of them, but a couple of things that came up that really were challenging, and then how it really morphed into what you're calling a profound act of self-love.
Yeah, I think it's a big part of it was knowing that sometimes I was going to be lonely, sometimes I was going to be scared, sometimes I was going to make some mistakes, some big mistakes or some stupid mistakes. And this I didn't know ahead of time. So this is what I had to learn through it that, okay, these different experiences happen. And I had yeah, that I was very insecure for lots of it. I was, I didn't know if I was doing it right because I see travel as this, spiritual experience, and I want, at the beginning to think, okay, I'm going to have all of these experiences, and then on the other side, I'm going to be something.
Oh, and
So
then yes, and then what happens is that you are you all the way through.
well, see, that's exactly right. One of my, going back to why I did this, one of the reasons was because I was not happy. I was not happy in my current circumstance. And so I realized, okay, I could blame it on my relationship. I could blame it on this city that I don't really like. I could blame it on, these things because, yeah, I'm feeling this way and it must be because of these external circumstances. And
Yes.
then I got to my favorite places in the world and I still felt that way.
Yeah.
I still had that, that kind of heaviness. And I realized, oh shit,
Right.
this is something going on inside me. It does not have anything to do with Albuquerque or, this man or the situation or whatever. But this is something within me that, okay, I'm being offered the opportunity to look at it because, yeah, exactly. It's a cliche because it's true that wherever you go, there you are.
Right. That's definitely, that's the
Yeah,
thing with those cliches and the platitudes. Like, even though they can
true.
feel a little
Yeah.
obnoxious, sometimes they're a perfect match to
Yeah.
describe what we're experiencing. What did you do when you got lonely?
I Yeah, I did all kinds of things. Okay, on the most ideal side, I just let myself be lonely. I realized this is something that happens to humans. This is a normal human thing.
Yep.
This is something to combat or avoid or whatever. Sometimes we just get lonely. And what I realized on the other side of that moment of loneliness is that, oh, when I got through that, I just even more got more comfortable being with myself. Like, okay, I like my company. I can do that. Now, I also t- at times watched a crap ton of Netflix because I was just didn't know what to do with myself, which travel does, especially solo, because when you take yourself out of your normal everyday routine, all the ways that you comfort yourself, all the
Yeah.
ways you soothe yourself, when you've taken yourself out of that, even if it's to a grand place, there's that part of you that's like, okay, this feels really weird. So
Yes. It's
I got,
exhausting.
it is, I got
Yeah.
restless, felt unsettled. So yeah, I went through many different series on on Netflix or what have you. Yeah, complained. I ate a lot of cookies and just so those different things, uh, which is also okay.
Right.
It's
They are
okay.
coping mechanisms. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
okay. And I got to know even more what those were. So when I was lonely, kind of the both of those. Now on the that's approaching loneliness and just kind of being with the lonely. I also I'm not a very social. I mean, I'm social, but it's got to feel comfortable. I'm not one of those that I'm going to go to a pub and just talk with, the locals. That
Okay, all right. So I am an
okay.
extrovert. Okay, so I'm very comfortable with my own company. Like being with myself. I can do things by myself. But if I don't have contact with people, I strike up conversations with strangers. Like immediately. Like if I am by myself all day long working on a project, like if everybody's gone, I go for like a walk in the afternoon. I talk to strangers. I talk to animals. I talk to plant life. So like if you like so and that's like, but I understand I am the only person like this in my entire family. And I know everybody, like so many people who are not like that, and so I do understand that not everybody is like that. I am the person in every group that people are like, Amy, go ask for directions. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, and I can do that. And I guess Uh, it just depends. So what I found is I stayed in predominantly Airbnbs.
Okay.
And what I found is I really enjoyed when I stayed with someone who wanted to chat.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so I started in these different Airbnbs and realized, oh, this is where I'm getting a lot of my social contact is through my hosts, my Airbnb hosts. I did notice that I also talked to people at the store and that kind of thing. So it was, I wanted that. But I would talk to my host. So what I started looking for, I always read reviews when I'm looking for where to stay, are the people that are saying hosts are very friendly, hosts like to chat, hosts are live in the building or next door or whatever, so that okay, that's good. Then I know. And I ended up staying with incredible people, making such good friends and having such amazing conversations yeah, that kind of helped with the loneliness part of it.
Yeah, no, that is a wonderful That is spectacular, actually, to meet the people. And it's when somebody's renting out a part of their house or offering to host, hopefully that is the type of person. It's not always true. Sometimes you get the hosts that are, you wonder,
Yeah.
why are you doing this? But they should hopefully have the personality to do this. All right. So you started this with an intention, a lot of pre-planning and a lot of ideas and some previous experience about some of the transformations that are possible for you that you had experienced on other times. What did you have an idea of what you were hoping would transform beforehand, before you started this? And then the second part of this question is, what is sort of the transformation that now that you look back that happened as a result of this year?
I wanted to uh figure out life.
Oh, just that. Okay.
Just that. What I was doing.
Question one, the meaning of life. And the answer to that, do you remember from the book? Do you know the book, the
Oh,
Guide
42.
42? There you go.
Right.
Thank you. Then
I
that's the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe. It's a very old book. I don't know if people still read it.
don't know either.
I
I
hope
haven't
they do. I
read
hope
this for
they
a
do.
while.
Douglas Adams, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe. Everybody should read it. That's the meaning of life. 42. Okay,
Uh,
sorry, I interrupted you, but that you
no,
went
that's
in to find the
okay.
meaning of life.
I wanted to know who I was. I wanted to come out on the other side being this confident woman who knew exactly what she was going to do and, you know, y- yeah, what do I want to do with my life? What do I want to be when I grow up? So I expected to be a grown up on the other side of
So wait,
of
but your kids were already grown at this point. Like, how old were you when you took this trip?
so my kids were already 26 and
Okay, all
20.
right. I just want to put it into context that we are all still waiting to grow up. Like we are all still waiting to
Exactly.
figure out what we're going to do when we're growing up. Okay, so
Yeah.
that those teeny tiny little questions, those were the ones that you went into this trip with. Meaning of life. What am I going to do when I grow up? Who am I? How do I solve all the world peace? Was that on the agenda? Things that you were going to solve?
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
on that.
So,
And then
um,
so I want to also say that uh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Just
So,
lost
so
train.
what, as a result, though, so you did have some pretty big goals, which
Mm.
actually my guess is that means that that's actually a measure of the malcontent and discontent that you were feeling, is really kind of probably what that is. That's a reflection of the uncertainty and that you had when you left. That's when we feel that, that's when we have those big questions. I mean, you could have just sat down and read some like, Camus and questioned your life choices in that way
Right,
in a
right.
cafe in like New Mexico, but instead you took a year, which I think is a much, much more fun way to do this.
Absolutely.
What now have it's done, it's complete. You can look back, you have the benefit of some time. What are some of the transformations that you did experience
Yeah,
as a result of
sure.
doing this
Sure.
year?
And yeah, I remember what I was going to say. I think what I realized is I had all these expectations. I wanted this trip to have purpose
Okay.
for business, for whatever, because I have to say, and I think a lot of people do, especially women, um, feel guilty about doing something that's completely where I am the top priority. I am the
Yep.
priority, the only priority for almost the whole thing. And so I thought, okay, well, I better turn it into where I'm, you know, documenting all the time and writing blogs and posting and all of this because I need to make sure I'm doing something purposeful while I'm
Right.
while I have
Have
done
to
this.
earn my pleasure.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Right.
And uh so at the end, I realized, oh, almost none of that happened. I had all these other things, but what I came out of it, like I said a little bit earlier, is just this amazing confidence.
Yeah.
Uh, this, just feeling like, oh wow, I did something really cool.
Yeah.
There were
I
a
think it
few
is cool.
little, yeah, there were a few little kind of more scary-ish things that I navigated through. So I know that I can navigate through because we can never guarantee on something like this, any kind of travel, that something might not come up.
Yep.
And but we can pretty much guarantee we have the wisdom to get through it. And so I just was able, I navigated through things. I appreciated my body. I appreciated, you know, I really appreciated actually by the end that I was willing to give myself that gift and put myself as a top priority.
Yeah, which is hard.
Yeah,
And what's funny is for the people who are younger who are listening to this, it's not hard when you're like 15 to make yourself a priority, right? It's
right,
this weird thing that when you're young, most of us are very good at prioritizing ourselves. And then something happens. It does coincide with parenting a lot, but I can't say that I'm going to blame it on, parenting and step parenting, that there is this shift that it's like, okay, well, obviously I only exist to serve others. And
right,
therefore, all of my desires go on the back burner. And then some people call it a reawakening, which is the retraining to like put yourself back on the priority list. And some people never do it. Some people never do it. So it's not something that you have to do. But it is a very, very common thread of conversation for many, many people. And I think that the benefit and one of the themes of this podcast is that I think I wish that there had been more people telling me when I was in my early 20s to be proactive about this so that I was more prepared for the whole cycle of it. Right. I think that that's something that we can do. All right. So this, you already knew that you liked solo travel. You put this together, you take this year, you do this. You actually have an entire business dedicated to helping other people do this. And I want to let you talk about that for a little bit, what it is that you do and how people can find you online if they are interested in discovering solo travel, because it is a thing that a lot of people are really scared to do. And so having somebody who is willing to walk them through the process of it is, I think, a really special thing.
right. Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I called, so actually a friend of mine, because I was like, what am I going to call this thing that I'm doing? I like to give titles to things. And she's like, oh, it's like a soul quest. And I thought, ooh, yes, this is my soul quest. And so afterwards, I developed a program called Spiral Path Soul Quests. And basically, I'm bringing in, because it was so helpful that I got that help ahead of time, that I wanted to be that person to help women, you know, kind of to plan and their solo travel. But I want to take it a step deeper of how do you make it a really truly deep, meaningful, spiritual, personal transformation experience, because that we don't always know what to do, like how to do that. And so often people solo travel without realizing, oh, this is actually going to be something incredible, and come out on the other side and think, wow, I really went through something amazing. What I want to do is help women know ahead of time this can be a truly transformational experience. Here are some things that you can do to even go deeper into it. Here's how to handle some of the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Here's how to make it even more beautiful. Here's how to choose where to go. Here's how, and then it's kind of here's how to feel safe. Here's how to get through loneliness, but here's how to truly connect with yourself so that you can come out on the other side, just even with even more of a homecoming into your own heart. And so I developed this Spiral Path Soul Quest solo travel coaching program where I work with women before, during, and then after. And that after is really important because we all do that. We all go, to a retreat or to some really nice kind of travel and think, oh, I feel great. How can I continue this feeling after I get back to quote real life, which I hate that because I think it's all real life, but that's some of the
But right,
verbiage.
after you get back to the routine, the place where
Right,
the
exactly.
habits are ingrained. Yeah.
So yeah, so I have this program set out where I am supporting throughout the entire thing. And yeah, it's really beautiful. I've had some great outcomes for different clients, and that that have just told me, oh, this program, it's so many people have told me this is the program that I didn't know I needed. Because it's like, why do I need kind of a life coach, which is, what I include into it, for my travel. I don't get it. And then, after working through this program, I'm going, okay, now I
Yeah.
get it.
Well, not everybody will need it, right?
Right.
Some people
Sure.
will move through it on their own, but for people who are would like to do it and are having trouble matching up the pieces or figuring out what to do, that's where a coach can be in anything can be really helpful, right? So, you take you want to learn how to play. Let's do pickleball because everybody plays pickleball now. I don't play pickleball, but many people play pickleball. You want to learn how to do it, right? You can spend 6 weeks watching YouTube videos and learn it on your own. But if you want to, learn it quickly and have a more enjoyable experience, you might look to hire a coach. And that's where that's pretty much transferable through so many things. Like that's how you accelerate it. And we don't always call it a coach. Coach is a weird word, right? But it catches a lot of things. Okay, so you have a wonderful special offer for the audience, which is a discount off of the Spiral Path Soul Quest. And people can reach out to you at by email and tell them that they're on the show, and it's 25% off the program price. That information will be in the show notes if you're listening, and in the email if you're a subscriber at imperfectadulting.com, which everybody should be because it's very, very nice. That's a very generous offer. I want to say thank you for sharing that. I also want to say thank you for sharing the story of this year-long trip. I think that I did it before, but I'll say it again. It was a bold, big dream to say, I'm going to take a year and do this. And I think you just get kudos for having the courage and the nerve to not just have the idea, but to execute and then come back and share with other people how to do the same thing. So thank you for sharing that.
You so much. It's
Yeah.
one of my favorite things to talk about solo travel because I dare say that I think solo travel is something every woman should try.
I think, yeah. I mean, I think that it's a very courage building to do it. And I will say before we go into the final questions, I'll throw in one last question, and then we'll do the rapid fire questions. When you told people that you were doing this long solo trip, what did you get pushback from people who were like, "Oh,
I I got a variety of responses.
okay,
I got the, oh, that's great. That's
yeah,
support. I mean, I from the people closest to me, they were all really supportive. I didn't get any kind of, ah, you shouldn't do that. Even from my relationship, it was like, yeah, that's you need to do what you got
okay.
to do. Um, and then I got responses like, oh, that's great. I would love to do that. I wish,
I wish I
I
could." Yeah,
or oh, I'm going to do that sometime. And then oh, you're so brave. That was one
that's
of
the
the
one.
biggest things
Yeah,
that I heard. And it used to, yeah, I used to not get it. I used because it felt very natural to me to
yeah,
just do that. And so I didn't understand, oh, I don't feel brave. But then I realized, oh yeah,
yeah. A lot of
that's
people don't do it.
a deal.
Many years ago, I was flying to Cancun to meet my friends on Cozumel, and I did not. And I was flew down by myself, right? Which I I felt safe the entire time, but many people were like, "Wow, you're flying by yourself," and I was like, "This is not like why like this is a highly tourist area. I like leave the airport, go to the taxi, get on the ferry, and meet my friends at the hotel." And but people were like, "That aren't you scared?" And I was like, "Well, not until you mentioned that. Like, thanks for bringing it up." But no. All right. So that was what was going through my head while you're thinking that. Now it's time to close this out. I'm going to ask you my three rapid fire questions just for fun. Answer, with whatever comes to mind. Okay.
Okay.
Do you ever go to the movies in the theaters? And if you do you have a favorite movie watching snack or treat?
Oh gosh. Well, heavily buttered popcorn.
Okay. All right. Then you can even do that at home when you're watching movies.
Yeah,
I'm just now.
right.
This is a
There's
question that I
something
like.
different. There's
Right.
something different with that oil that's, you only
It's yeah,
get.
you only get it there. Yeah, heavily but yeah. And the movie theater popcorn is a special kind of heavily salted. It is so salty. Oh my goodness. All right. Would you describe yourself as a rule breaker or a rule follower?
Ooh, I'm a rule follower.
Okay. All right. That's interesting because you did that. I love that. Okay. What is your favorite sort of weather season of the year? What is your favorite season of the year?
Fall, fall.
Fall.
Yeah,
Very
leaves
nice.
changing. That really it kind of has that magical feel where you can feel when the season is changing and the leaves start to change. Yeah, that's definitely my favorite time of year, especially in New Mexico.
Wow. All right. I have to check it out. All right. That's it. Jennifer Corbeau, you have been an amazing guest today on the show. Thank you so
Oh, thank
much.
you. Thank you, Amy. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for listening today. I hope that you enjoy the show. And before I go, I want to encourage you to become a bigger part of the conversation. Obviously, subscribe wherever you're listening to the show. Listen to more episodes. That'd be great. Again, please write a review and tell your friends about the show. That truly is a great help for getting the show in front of new people. Okay, but more fun for you yourself, head over to imperfectadulting.com and join the email community. You'll get some free stuff right away, and that way you'll begin to get the emails about the podcast. This includes the links for the special offers from the guests, and it's the only way to get that. Also, if you aren't in the mood to listen, I actually include an article directly in those emails. Whee! Now, if you love this and you crave more time with me, Amy, as a coach, a mentor, or just adultier adult, numero uno, check out The Village. If you have a story you want to share with the listeners, I'd love to hear from you. I have an open application. Just let me know you want it. And that's a wrap for today. Until next time, remember, the journey is the destination. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that, not me. Well, until just now, I did just say it. But what I want you to hear today is that if your adulting journey isn't going the way you expected, that may not mean that you're lost. It may just mean that you're on your way. This is Amy Stone, signing off. The Imperfect Adulting podcast is created and produced by Amy Stone and Amy Says So. Anything expressed on this show is offered as entertainment, and the views of the guests may not always represent the ideas and viewpoints of the host. That's me. Amy does not intend or hold herself out to provide professional advice or recommendations of any kind. In the end, you and you alone need to make those kinds of decisions based on your personal and individual situation, needs, circumstances, and comfort level.